Hi friends, I'm John Laspina, the Carnivore teacher. Today we're going to talk about diabetes a little bit. Did you know that there's a thing called type 1 diabetes? What is type 1 diabetes? Type 1 is you have this organ in your body called your pancreas. And your pancreas makes beta cells and alpha cells. The beta cells produce the hormone called insulin. Insulin's main job is to unlock the cell door so that nutrition can go into your cells for energy and for growth. The alpha cells create glucagon, and when you're in a fasted state, when you're not eating, the glucagon is being utilized. And when you're in a fed state, the insulin is doing its job. And insulin affects, and glucagon and insulin, they affect all of your other hormones. Everything works together. They do many minor jobs, but those are the two main jobs that they do. Now, a person with type 1 diabetes has a problem with their pancreas. They're either not making beta cells or it's not enough, and they can't make insulin. So insulin is the key that opens the door that lets the energy in. The door never gets opened up, and the person can starve to death of malnutrition. Type 1 diabetics must inject themselves with insulin. They prick their finger or they have a continuous glucose monitor and they find out what their blood glucose level is presently. My body does all the thinking for me. My pancreas works behind the scenes for me. It's kind of cool. But if your pancreas does not work, then you have to do the thinking and you have to do the measuring. You have to think about everything you're eating. You have to constantly check and see if you're low or high. If you're way too high, way over 150, 200, you have to give yourself insulin because that glucose will damage, it will glycate. That insulin will get the energy into the cells, and it does basically what your pancreas does. If you're too low, type 1 diabetes, they actually have to eat a little bit of glucose. They do. So it's a balancing act. Now, type 2 diabetes, this is my layman's understanding of all of this. I'm not a doctor. Type 2 diabetes is you have a normal pancreas function, normal alpha cells and normal beta cells for your insulin and your glucagon, and you consistently, chronically overeat lots of carbohydrates and sugars over a long period of time, and the cells are seeing the insulin. Your body's making the insulin like crazy. Too much insulin, actually, because of the demand, because of all the sugar. And the cells open up, but they start to get resistant. It's kind of like that telephone. If the phone is ringing, you pick it up and say, hello. Now, if the phone continues to ring, you wait a little bit longer before you pick it up because you kind of get tired of talking on the phone. So it rings 3 times, and then you'll pick it up. And then you hang up, and then it rings again and again and again, and you start to not answer the telephone as fast because you're tired. And that's what the cells are like. They get tired of all that sugar, all that insulin, demanding all that sugar to get into the cells. So your cells become insulin resistant. The American Diabetes Association wants you to give yourself insulin if you become a type 2 diabetic. Type 2 means that your HbA1c is way up there, like 6.5 or higher. You're type 2 diabetic. And you're kind of like going to be malnourished as well. So what they suggest is give yourself even more insulin to make those cells open up. It's kind of like the phone ringer volume gets turned up. And it rings so loud that you have to open up to shut it up. And then the American Diabetes Association also encourages their type 2 diabetics to eat a lot of healthy grains, and there's actually sugar in there too, and they have recipes for all this crap. The ADA is ridiculous. Dr. Berry and a few others are forming the American Diabetes Society, and they're going to offer healthy recipes and tell people the truth about blood sugars and about their type 2 diabetes to help them get healthy, because the ADA is not doing a good job at all. They're deceiving people. They're lying to people. I don't know if their motives are because they make money. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole, but it's terrible. So type 2 diabetics have to give themselves all that insulin, and then they're encouraged to eat all that carbohydrate. It's not the way to go. If you're type 1 or type 2, The recommendation is low to no carbs. Type 1, measure your blood sugar. Your liver makes glucose. It makes about 4 grams, like a level teaspoon, that flows through your bloodstream at all times. When you become fat adapted, your liver gets very efficient at just making that amount, and that's it. So if you're type 1, you almost don't have to give yourself that. You have to give yourself insulin, because you have to get that energy in your cells for protein and that glucose. But if you're eating no carbs, you're almost as healthy as a non-diabetic. You just have to measure and watch and give yourself some insulin. Type 2 diabetics, eventually you will lose that label. You will be in remission. Your HbA1c will come down to below 5.7. It takes time. It's different speeds for different people, but you will not be a type 2 diabetic anymore if you don't overfeed your body carbs and sugar. Just eliminate the carbs and sugar. Become fat adapted, keto adapted, and you don't have to give yourself insulin anymore. You're not a diabetic anymore, a type 2 diabetic. Now, have you heard of type 3 diabetes? Have you? Type 3 diabetes is Alzheimer's. It's very similar to type 2, chronic excessive carbohydrates and sugar over a long period of time, only it's in the head, in the brain. The brain needs ketones, and it uses some glucose. If you're constantly eating glucose and you're getting these enormous amounts over time, there's a resistance in the brain. The same way your cells in the rest of your body are insulin resistant, the brain becomes insulin resistant to the insulin to let the energy in. And we get this advanced form of dementia called Alzheimer's disease, named after the guy. And that's type 3 diabetes. So if you can learn this early enough in life and cut out, like I learned it when I was about 53 years old. I'm going to be 59 soon. I stopped all the carbs and sugar and ultra-processed food when I was 53. So I'm hoping as I get older, my chances of getting Alzheimer's are drastically diminished. Okay, the sooner you can get off the carbs and sugar, the greater chance you will have a healthy rest of your life. But if you continue to eat chronic excessive carbohydrates and sugar and you get older, I mean, it can hit any time. It could hit me now, Alzheimer's. Your chances are higher for getting type 3 diabetes in the head, Alzheimer's. Now, I've also heard, and Dr. Anthony Chafee talks about this, he may have different numbers for these, but the concept of a type 4 diabetes. PCOS for women. That's where the diabetes is affecting women's ovaries. Polycystic ovarian syndrome. And it's causing a lot of problems for women. And they can't get pregnant. PCOS. A lot of type 2 diabetics have PCOS as well. Isn't that interesting? It's kind of connected. So that could be a type 4, or you can call that one the type 3 and Alzheimer's the type 4. But it's a type of insulin resistance, PCOS. Then there's another one, type 5 diabetes, also coined by Dr. Anthony Chafee, and that's cancer. Isn't that interesting? If you are chronically, excessively abusing carbohydrates and sugar, abusing your body with that for a long period of time, your body is constantly fighting pathogens and constantly taking care of viruses and bacteria. You have a greater chance of acquiring a mutation that's going to be triggered by all that sugar, and there's your cancer that can now grow. What does cancer love? What does cancer feed off of like crazy? Glucose. Glucose and glutamine, but way more glucose. When they're trying to see where the cancer is in a person's body, they actually inject them locally with a type of glucose. Because cancer cells light up like crazy, like a Christmas tree, when they see glucose. Cancer is a glucose hog. Type 5 diabetes could be called cancer. Is there a type 6 or type 7? I bet you there are. And so many things are related to too much sugar, too many carbs. Do you have to realize that, from the dawn of man all the way up through the millions of years and the thousands of years and the hundreds of years and the decades ago, all the way up to around 1880, we did not have ultra-processed food. We did not have all this refined sugar that we sprinkled on everything and that was in foods. We did not have access to all this glycation in our cells. It wasn't available. And when they had little bits of it here and there, it was little bits of it here and there. If you eat some fruit on a tree near your house when it's ripe, that one time of year, that's kind of when it's meant to be eaten. It wasn't treated with pesticides. It's not ripe for 11 months and 15 days of the year, and you only get it one time of the year. That's when fruit was meant to be eaten. We're buying fruit at the store any day of the year from all over the world, and it's genetically modified, which means it resists the glyphosate, which means there's residual glyphosate on there, and it's bred to be bigger and sweeter. So don't think that you're not having carbs and sugar because all you do is eat fruit. Fruit is way sugarier, and fruit juice is horrible. Don't ever drink orange juice or grapefruit juice or use a juicing machine and juice anything. You are toxically hurting yourself. You're breaking down all the fibers so that the sugar is really accessible. And it's like the fruit times 10. It's like sugar times 10. 10x sugar. That's what juice is. Don't ever drink any juice. I know that sounds like a controversy. You are consolidating all that sugar in a drink really fast. So back to my premise here. I often get off topic here. I used to do that as a teacher, and the kids would make me go down the path, and I forgot what I was talking about. And they would giggle, and I knew they were doing it. Diabetes. We can't avoid type 1. Type 1 is an autoimmune condition that you did not do to yourself. You inherited type 1 diabetes, where your pancreas doesn't make beta cells. You're giving yourself type 2, type 3, type 4, and type 5 diabetes if you chronically eat carbohydrates and sugar. And you do it over a long period of time. If you have any of those diseases related to type 2, 3, 4, 5, we're giving it to ourselves through the standard American diet or the standard world diet, whatever diet you're on, whatever country you live in. So eat well. Eat beef, lamb, pork, poultry, fish, and eggs, cooking only in animal fats, and you will thrive. And your chance for disease will be almost erased. Any symptoms you have will disappear. The carnivore way of eating. This is Dr. Kilt's t-shirt. I got to meet him at KetoCon Hack Your Health. What a man, full of energy, right? He's in his 70s and he's so healthy, and he's teaching the world about the carnivore way of eating and how it can help women get pregnant and men inseminate. And he's a fertility specialist, but he talks about eating, and he has some great recipes for ice cream and all those great things. Become the optimized version of yourself, and you won't get diabetes. 2, 3, 4, or 5. Have a good day.